It's green. So today, the thing I wanted to review, which we have already reviewed, so it's take 2 for you, is the comparison essay from invention to outline. And because I want to see a little more depth in our invention process. So there's things you can do. You can compare 2 characters, you can compare 2 events, you can compare 2 books. But what I would like to do today is compare 2 characters. I want to compare Joe and Huck in the book Tom Sawyer. So you compared 2 events, and what 2 events did you compare?
Compared the first time Tom got lost and the second time.
Ah, the first time he got lost to the second time he got lost. And what did you compare? I
compared Tom and Huck.
You compared Tom with Huck. Oh, I bet that was interesting. I want to compare Joe Harper with Huck. The fastest way to do this is have, are, and do. So who are Joe and Huck?
They're friends.
They're friends. With each other?
Yeah.
Sure. And who else?
Tom.
Tom. So these are things they have in common, right? This middle section. Okay. What do they have? Do they have anything in common?
Both have a desire for adventure.
They both love adventure.
And don't like work.
They both dislike work. Excellent. So we're going from the inside and we can go out. Or we can go from the outside and come through. So can you think of some things that they have, one of you two, that's different?
Different?
Mm-hmm. What are some things they have that are different? We've talked about some things they have that are the same.
Was Joe the one that was a pirate with them?
Yep.
Okay, just wanted to make sure I had the right
Joe has a family.
Joe has a family. What does Huck have, you guys? He's a drunk, dissolute dad. Okay. What are some other differences between what they have?
Huck has a lot more freedom to do what he wants.
Huck has freedom. What does Joe have?
Rules.
Joe has rules. Come home to dinner.
Joe has chores. Huck doesn't.
Probably.
Joe goes to school.
Very good. School. No school. There's another really big thing that one of them has that the other one doesn't. Where does Huck live? Yeah, a home. Joe has a home, and Huck is homeless. Not the way homelessness is portrayed today, is it? People think it's like the worst thing ever. Okay, and then what about things that they do? Things that are the same or things that are different that they do? They love adventure. What are some of the adventures they went on together? They went the pirate adventure. Any other adventures they did together? As a direct result of the pirate adventure, came the funeral adventure. Remember they crashed their own funeral? There was going to be a group funeral for them and they showed up for it. Right. But so they both love adventure, and some of their adventures are the same, but some of their adventures are different. Specifically, some of their adventures with Tom are different. So what are some things that Joe did with Tom that Huck did not do? Did he help paint the fence? He got roped into the fence adventure, okay?
He was there in the caves. He wasn't with Tom.
So he went to the cave Sunday school outing or whatever it was.
Huck was trying to find the buried treasure.
They looked for treasure together, Tom and So these are like Tom adventures, we'll call them. Yeah, he looked for treasure with Tom.
And didn't they go to the cemetery?
They went to the graveyard together, and they saw a murder there, right? Okay, what else? Did Huck go on any other adventures? Yeah, let's go
By
to
himself
do.
or with Tom?
Doesn't matter. What are some things that Huck and Joe did? Either similar or
Well,
different?
Huck like did a stakeout looking for Joe. I mean,
Injun Joe? So he did a stakeout?
And he saved the widow.
Yes, he saved Widow Douglas. Yeah. What about Joe? What are some things he did?
played with the tick in school.
Played with the tick. What about at the very beginning of the book? Before the whitewashed fence? What?
He had to fight with Tom.
The big battle, and he was one of the captains?
Yeah.
He was captain of the imaginary battle. Okay, so can you think of any other things that are different or the same about Joe and Huck?
Joe goes to church.
Joe goes to church. Yes.
But
Great.
they're both young and pretty naive a lot of the time.
They're boys. They're young. What were you going to say?
Huck smokes.
Very good. Actually, they both smoked.
They both smoke.
And what was the difference in their smoking?
Huck smokes constantly.
He was fine, and then how was it with Joe when he smoked?
That's it.
He puked. Yeah. That was a big difference. Okay, so this looks really good. So we generated all this information to fill up our inventory with, and it helped us think about the issues, and now what we want is an outline. And we're doing a specific kind of essay. We're doing a comparison essay. But if you look at all these things, this is what I noticed. They're all at the level of the sub-proof. Yeah. So if you were sorting, they're all at the lowest level of sorting. Okay. So what we need is to name some things. So we're looking for some sub-themes so that once we sorted groups, we could kind of see what we might want to name them. So what are some things that some themes or ideas that sort of come out of this?
Well, the adventures with Tom.
The idea of adventure, and specifically Tom-inspired adventures, right? What are some other ideas or themes that come out of this? You gotta let someone else answer.
Society, how they relate to their society.
Oh, yes. One of the things I noticed here is that Joe fits into society and Huck does not. So what do we could call that social position? Or something else if you didn't like that name. What are some other themes that come out? You could say family background, but if you did family background, you probably wouldn't do social position, or vice versa, right? These are kind of, you might have to choose between these two.
Could you do
Could one encompass the other?
Yeah. What?
Could you do responsibilities?
Responsibilities. They have different responsibilities. Also, one of the things that I noticed is he's the captain of the battle, and he helps to save Widow Douglas. What's the name for that?
Hero.
Hero, sure. So, hero, or you could call that good character, or like character. You could call that leadership, right? Leadership ability. So now,
Don't they both have like a following ability too? They follow.
yes, they follow and they lead. Okay. Yeah. They follow mostly Tom. A little bit Huck, but mostly Tom. So, okay, so now we have some themes. And if you were sorting, these would be the names of your groups. Okay? So now we want to sort a little bit or try to put these ideas, and the goal is an outline that's coherent where the ideas are properly related to each other. So let's pick 3 of these to write our comparison essay. So which one would you pick?
Social position.
Social position. Okay. What's another good one you think?
Adventure.
Something about adventures. And then what do you think a good last one would be?
Responsibilities.
Something about their responsibilities. What is that going to mean?
Like Joe has chores, Huck doesn't.
At school,
At school.
Okay, a lot of that's going to go under social position.
Mm.
We could try though. We'll try this and we'll see what happens. So I'm going to write a comparison essay and I'm going to say that Joe and Huck, they're friends and their common friend is Tom. And so there's some things that are the same about them and there's some things that are different about their friendship with Tom or about themselves as boys. And so my first paragraph is probably, let's do social position. So let's sort. What's going to go, like if this was truly an outline, what's going to go in this paragraph on social position? Like we'll name it right here. We'll go 1, different social standing. So that's A, actually. That's my first main theme for a paragraph. So my topic sentence is going to say something about this. What are my subpoints going to be? Can you sort from this?
One has a home, one doesn't.
Okay. So home. Joe yes. Huck no.
One has a family.
One has a family and one doesn't.
One thing we don't have up there is Huck. Most of the town doesn't like him, but then Joe is pretty well liked.
That is excellent. So do you see, this is what it means to piggyback. We did this process, this invention process. Then we looked at it and we're like, oh, we have to sort and name. So we named some potential groups. As we were trying to fill the group, a brilliant idea came. So yes, Joe fits in and Huck is a misfit. Actually, that's a difference between Tom and Huck, what you said.
Yeah, that was one of them.
But, so what you were saying is that Tom is liked, Huck not so much. So from that, I got the idea that Joe fits into society's standards and Huckleberry Finn does not. He stands out. I always call him Huckleberry instead of Huck. Great. So could you make a whole paragraph now out of that? Does that make sense? Do all of these ideas come underneath this overarching, does this act as a true umbrella topic sentence? Mm-hmm. And the weight is correct too. So that's great for a paragraph. So now we need another paragraph. We're going to do paragraph B. So do you want to do responsibilities or adventure? Adventure. So different adventures. Well, actually, you're just going to do adventures. Because some are the same and some are different. So that probably is how I would even divide my outline.
They even respond to different adventures. Like, they respond to the same adventures differently.
Yeah, that could be a paragraph. It could. But let's just talk about their adventures. What are some differences in their adventures? See now, even though these are sub-points, we have to kind of name them again.
Well,
So what's the difference between playing with a tick at school and watching a murder in a graveyard?
Huck tends to follow Tom into more dangerous adventures.
Yes. So Huck's adventures, they're more dangerous.
And Joe's are kind of just play or fun.
And Joe's are more, they're a little flat. They're a little tame, right? His are more tame.
There are
Okay.
also a lot of his are like imaginary adventures, like they be pirates and stuff.
Excellent.
When Huck actually searches for a treasure type.
Right. Excellent. So see how I kind of named even the subpoints? But I want to prove them from the text. So what's my specific example? What's my specific example? We already said this. It's really obvious.
The graveyard.
The graveyard example. See, it's really dangerous and real. He saw a murder, and he played with a tick. Or he was the captain of a game, and it was an imaginary adventure. And he saved Widow Douglas, which was a real adventure, right? So what I want you to see when you're writing is like the value of naming. So you named your sub-theme about adventure, and then you kind of had to name the specifics, kind of label them or help illustrate or help your reader understand to see the relationship between them. But it's much easier to see the relationship when you do this process for some reason that no one knows. God knows. So this is B. So A, we have the different social standing, and B, we have different adventures. But you would have to acknowledge the sameness and the difference. So they did share, although they shared some adventures, such as crashing a funeral and running away to be pirates together. Blah, blah,
They
blah.
put the fun in funeral.
They put the fun in funeral. Okay, so now we need a third paragraph. We're really running out of room. Ta-da! Now we have room. So C, what is our C point going to be?
Their responsibilities.
Their responsibilities. And what are we going to say about that?
I just thought of one. I don't know like how good this would be, but like I know they were complaining about like having to like get dressed and get nicely dressed, and Huck just could wear whatever he wanted, could go barefoot and.
So how would you put that in there?
Responsibilities.
In a sense. So Huck, he had no responsibilities in terms of wearing shoes, right? But he did have some responsibilities. Like what?
He had to provide for himself.
Yeah, he was on his own. He had to provide for himself. As shown that, you know, when he's got warts, it's his job to get a dead cat and go to the cemetery and take care of it. Right? So he has to provide for himself. And Joe, what are his responsibilities?
Chores.
He's got to do chores. He's got to go to church. He's got to go to school.
Stay clean.
He's got to stay clean.
Huck was also responsible for staking out Injun Joe.
Yeah, that's true. So he was responsible for himself, and what that led to was he took some responsibility for others. So who else did he take responsibility for? Tom, and who else? Widow Douglas. So see, that makes for a very meaty paragraph, which is full of interesting and important ideas. So Huck, how can anyone read this? Huck had no responsibilities in terms of things like shoes, school, church, but he had to provide for himself. He had that responsibility, as shown by the graveyard, and he had to provide for himself places to sleep and food and things like that. And then he, in turn, eventually took responsibility providing for others, staking out Injun Joe, helping Widow Douglas, helping Tom. And then we have Joe. Now, Joe's responsibilities are the ones of society. Go to church, go to school. I can't even read what I wrote. Do chores and stay clean. And so what did that lead to in the end?
Joe wasn't as like he was more timid and not as like brave.
So he wasn't as bold. We don't know if that was caused by this or if that caused this, right? It could be.
He wasn't as successful, like, because of the risks he took. Huck got all that money, and Joe wasn't willing to take those risks, so he didn't.
So a thing about Huck is he takes risks. And a thing about Joe is he plays it safe, right? So do we still want to name this responsibilities, or do we want to name this something else? Character. I agree with that. Are you okay with that?
Yep.
But do you see how responsibility got us there? People say it's a waste of time because they didn't use it, but it's not. It got us there, right? So now we take responsibility and we say character. We have different character. Okay, so now this is a little hard to see. This worked for us when we named our sub-themes and we picked some and then we wiggled them around. That worked for us. So now we have A, B, and C. And A is that they have different positions in society or different social standings. So Joe has a home, he has a family, he fits into society. Huck has no home, his dad is a drunk, and he doesn't fit into the town. People are suspicious of him and they don't like him. The second paragraph is about the adventures that they have, specifically with Tom. So Tom leads them into adventures, but it's a different kind of adventure for each boy, even though some are the same. The pirate thing's the same, the funeral thing is the same. So Huck sees a murder with him in the cemetery, which actually I think Huck talked Tom into that adventure. And then Huck, I wonder what that was about. Widow Douglas. Wow, you're good. So he had that adventure saving Widow Douglas. And then Joe's adventures were he played with a tick at school, and he did the pirate thing, and he, but he also was a captain in an imaginary battle with his friends. And so you're going to say that Huck's were dangerous and real, but Joe's were more tame and that they were imagined and made up. So you guys, do you see how that's deep? You're getting some depth into those ideas and seeing sort of some complicated ways that things are related to each other. Now we have to value something over something. So what are we going to value?
Well, Huck's uniqueness and being outside of society forced him to take risks, and that led to more benefit and more gain than what Joe did in the story.
So we're going to value Huck above Joe because he took risks and benefited the community more? That's totally legit. So for our summary, we're going to value Huck above Joe, and we're going to say the risks he took benefited the community. But here's the interesting thing. What's surprising about that?
He was a social outcast.
He was a social outcast, and what did you say?
He wasn't really like that.
People didn't like him. What else is kind of surprising about this?
He's homeless.
He's homeless. So what would you expect? How would you expect this essay to play out?
That Joe would be.
Helping.
Joe had the good home, the good education, the church upbringing. Why isn't he the better person? Why are we valuing Huck above Joe? Well, the truth is, if you wanted to, you could value Huck above Joe. You could say that if Huck didn't have the bad influence of Tom Sawyer, and if the community would rise up and do right by him, that it would prevent all kinds of problems, and Joe wouldn't be smoking and running away. See, you could show it either way. This is a little more true to the author's intent, though, don't you think? Do you think this is maybe what the author was trying to say? Mm-hmm. So you're going to value Huck above Joe, and you're going to say he had better character? Is that what we're going to say? Because he took more risks and he took responsibility for people?
Yeah, I feel like he had like a deeper character.
Yeah. He had more depth and complexity of character.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing you could do is you could start out by saying they're both Tom's friends, but in the end, Huck maybe was a better friend. Maybe he was a more intimate friend. If you weren't comfortable making the value judgment that he was a better friend, you could say they were more intimate, they were closer. And then maybe it wouldn't trouble you as much the bad influence. But okay, so that's the thing about a comparison essay, is you don't figure out the main point until the end. So we sorted, we named our groups, we wiggled them around until they worked, and then we looked at them for a while and we had to value something above something else, which caused us to see this contrast here between how they were growing up and how their character played out. So sometimes this can bother Christians, but the truth is this illustrates the importance of free will over behaviorism, that people have choices that they can make to do right. So I don't see any inherent conflict with this. So I hope that helps you. The other thing that I want you to see is, I know you've done a lot of key word outlines, and maybe we've covered this before, but I just can't cover it too much. So our thesis is going to be that Huck and Joe, although they're both Tom's friends, Huck's got better character. He's a better friend, he's a better person, or he benefits the community more. I like that too. You could definitely say that. And then you've got A, which has to do with social standing. Right? B, which has to do with, what was B? Adventures. And C, which has to do with character. Do all of these ideas fit under this thesis? Mm-hmm. And then underneath we put the subpoints that have to do that. And we kind of had to go back and forth between using specific examples from the text and sort of like naming them. So the hard thing to me is just, it's a semantic thing. But these are the subpoints, and these are the sub-themes, and this is the main theme. So there's too many subs in there, it can be very confusing. So that's what I wanted to cover on outline. So your assignment is to compare two things from Tom Sawyer and do that chart, the have, are, do chart, which have, are, and do are just triggers, and you don't have to use them if you can think of other things too. But you make that chart, and then I want you to name some of the big themes that come up out of it, and then sort and wiggle it around and make an outline. Okay? So you guys already did that?
Yeah, I got to send it to you.
Yep. You got it. Okay, great. Yes.
So the thesis, that doesn't go, we don't introduce that until the end, or do we have it in the beginning?
You know, I have been asking myself that for several weeks, and I haven't really come up with the answer. I think you have to decide how much you want to hint at where you're going to end. So like if we remember the one about the necklace and the gift of the Magi? They really just hinted. They didn't actually tell you the result. So they didn't clearly state the thesis. And sometimes that can be a lot more persuasive to people.
They kind of like did like half of it where like if you were doing this you might say
They hooked your interest.
You're like how you're raised doesn't always affect how your character like what social standing you have doesn't always affect your character, and then you could like.
So that would be your hint.
Yeah.
So they just sort of hint where they're going to go, so that you're looking for that. So and you can surprise them either way. You can surprise them that Huck had the bad upbringing and the good character, or you could surprise them that you don't agree with the author and you think Joe has a better life and the kind of life that you would want for your own children, as opposed to Huck's life. So, yeah, I'm not totally clear on that, but I love the thinking process of this and what it brings out. And for some people, especially hostile audiences, this is much more persuasive than putting your main point out there at the very beginning, because then they're already thinking of all their arguments. So I'm going to turn off the video.
File.